Welcome back, guys. Another episode of the Pressing Forward podcast. I've got Matt Mistretta with us. He was on before, talked about his experiences in the Marine Corps and some of the things that he's been doing after. But since Matt will tell you his story about some things that he was involved in over the last couple of years, and he's been recently acquitted or proven not guilty of those charges while he was a police officer, and he's going to give us a little insight about that. So, Matt, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing real good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, dude, I think it's important. We had talked about the last time we spoke that, when all this was said and done, we were going to get you back here and give you the opportunity to tell your story and, straight from the horse's mouth. So, um, give us a little insight. Like once you transitioned out of the Marine Corps, you talked about giving, staying in this position of service, right? So you had done, the firefighter route. You went and do the police officer route, or was the firefighter after you were a police officer?
I was a firefighter first. I was actually an EMT first, then I did firefighting, and then I became a police officer.
Okay, for sure. So, I mean, wherever you want to take it with starting off in that dedication to service, even after you had just gone through your experiences in the Marine Corps and like from what we talked about, that's obviously some pretty fucking heavy stuff. So with that and you continue to put yourself in a position where, essentially your life is on the line and how much of yourself you have to give to that to be in a position to either save somebody's life, take somebody's life, and like do these demanding things that you're asked to do on behalf of the city that you're working for.
Yeah, so I found like great resolve in being a firefighter, right? One thing that I have difficulty with is, everybody says, this is a brotherhood, which it can be if you have those people that have the same mentality around you. I remember I was on a training evolution, right, as a firefighter, and we had a medical scenario that was real world, and one of the gentlemen on the fire department thought he was having a heart attack. So I remember I carried him down the ladder. We were up on the second story doing what's known as vent enter search, VES. So essentially, you throw a ladder, get into the second window, you search, and you see if there's anybody above the seat of the fire to make sure that they get pulled out, mainly women, children, and kids, adults, grandmother, whoever it may be. And when we get up there, he has a medical scenario. He says, "I think I'm having a heart attack." So I got him down the ladder. He ended up being fine. But I remember when we got back to the fire department, one of my captains, there's like six people in the kitchen, and the kitchen attaches to the living room because it's an open firefighter bay. And he sits down on the couch and he goes, "Man, you know, uh, I don't walk into fires much anymore, but I hope you're there on the next one because I know if I have to go into a house, like you're gonna bring the whole building down, getting me out." And I remember looking at him, and everybody kind of stopped in the kitchen. They were listening because he was a pretty respected captain. And I remember looking and I go, "I would do that for any of you." And then it dawned on me that we're not the same. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't, right? But it's a no hesitation type deal to me. Like this is like that's my brother, that's my sister. I'm going in. Like send me. And like granted, I have higher physical capabilities than a lot of other people. I'm 6'3", 250. But at the same time, like I don't care if I was 5'3", 120. Like if that's my brother and my brother's in danger, we're going to get him. Kind of like that Gunner Marine story when Sergeant Marlowe went down in the gully.
Right.
Um, like
Marlowe's okay.
Marlowe's okay. Like Jesus. But we come from the land where people run into machine gun fire. We come from the land where, somebody's down and they struck an IED. Like, I have no time. If he's an amp, I have 30 to 60 seconds to get that tourniquet applied. So that means I have to close that gap. I have to apply that tourniquet, and hopefully one of my friends does not die. So this is a reaction thing to me. This isn't a hey, let's think about this. This isn't a hey, well, that's dangerous. This isn't a hey, like I don't know about this. This is I'm going. You're either coming or you're not. And if you're not, I don't want to fucking see you when I get back. And that's happened. That happened on my first tour. That's what resulted in Sergeant Woodall receiving a Silver Star. And I think we talked about that. You know, that this is not, there's no question for me. I'm going. And so I became a firefighter in 2015. I transitioned out of being a firefighter in 2019, and you know, I began being a police officer in 2017, and I transitioned out in 2020. And to surmise why I left the department is in August of 2020, I made a traffic stop on what I thought was just a high rate of speed vehicle. It's at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and I'm sitting outside of a local grocery store. And I have a sheriff's department car. I have myself. I'm city, and I have a tribal unit with me. There's a lot of tribal area in the state of Michigan, and they also have state jurisdiction. So that means like they're good everywhere. Um, so we see a vehicle at all of triple digits. You know, he's blowing through. Self-admittedly, he said 80 miles an hour. Um, in a 25. So I'm like, we're going to talk to this guy. So I leave the parking lot. I have the tribal unit behind me, and we pull off, right? As I begin the traffic stop, I go zero point 0.6 miles west. The sheriff's department car gets a call for a domestic disturbance 0.4 miles east from that location, from the parking lot. So he goes east, we go west, 2 and 1. I pull the car over, it's slow to stop, which means that like it sees me, it acknowledges me, it hits its brakes, but it's not stopping, it's just creeping. So, you know, he's doing all of 80, and then he slows down, makes a left-hand turn, and now we're on the main drag where there's houses. There are like people occupying the dwellings on a Friday night at 10 p.m. And so he finally stops, comes to a full complete stop, as one would say. And I get out of the car, and before I approach the truck, um, the other sheriff's department car goes, "I have a gunshot wound to the face. Send me another unit." I look back at the tribe unit. I go, "Hey, I got this. You go help him." So now I'm alone. Tribe unit takes off, goes down the street. He only had to go a mile. So, because we were the closest units to him, so I approached the vehicle, and the windshield shattered. The driver's covered in blood. He's not wearing a t-shirt. There's a bloody tire iron in the center console. The passenger's screaming at me. They're screaming at me in Spanish and English. And I'm like, "Yo, calmate, like slow down." And as I'm like looking in the window, you never stand 90 degrees of somebody, just like you would search a vehicle in Afghanistan, the direction, distance, hands. I use the same technique. And so I'm the A pillar is the windshield, the B pillar is where the door meets the car, right? That's where it latches to the car. I'm standing at the B pillar, and I'm kind of like looking in. I'm bladed sideways. You know, I have a good posture. And the sheriff's department unit goes 464, my number. He goes, 464, you have my shooter on your traffic stop. Well, that changes the dynamic of things. So I punch out, start going to work. I'm already at that reactionary gap. There's no more distance to be covered. I am within arm's distance of the driver's side door. I'm telling him, "Give me your hands. Let me show you, see your hands, 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 hands." Well, he's extremely intoxicated. He was a 0.11 4 hours after the incident. And he's also underage. He was only 20 years old at the time of the incident. And so the passenger is 14 years old. So he is intoxicated to the point where he's failing to follow commands, right? So I tell him to put his hands up. He puts his hands up. He's like, "Yeah, here." And then I keep telling him, like, "Hey, do this, do this." And his hands keep going down, right? I, at that point in time, believe he is a shooter. My partner didn't say, "Hey, you know, he got hit in the head with a baseball bat." He didn't say, "Hey, you know, X." He said, "I have a gunshot wound to the face, so I know he's capable of that violence. And it's confirmed that he's that person to the best of our knowledge. So I pull him out of the car and I start working. Right. I have the passenger getting in and out of the car and I'm screaming at him, get back in the fucking car. Get back in the fucking car. I, you as well as I do, know that it is extremely capable that if there are two people in one gun, I have to play the ratio on that. And I don't want the passenger to get out and shoot me while I'm dealing with the driver, right? Because now I'm dealing with his hands.
Right at this
So,
point, so you said that you've been on the main strip, right? And there's dwellings. It's Friday night at 10 o'clock. Have people started to come outside yet and start like peeking out to see like you got your lights on, you start yelling, you're like, get the fuck back in the car. Have people started to come outside yet?
no, so nobody actually physically came outside to what I remember. It,
Okay.
it being in these high stress situations, like I wouldn't say, tunnel vision, right? Because we as Marines train to envelop the entire battlefield, right? Like a gunfight's not linear, right? It's not just me and you. It's what is enveloping me, what's behind me, where are my friends, where is that dude going? What's going on over here? So it's not a linear dynamic. However, when adrenaline spikes, the walls start closing. So I'm dealing with that. So to the best of my abilities, I don't know if anybody came out. I found out later, specifically the next day, that somebody had recorded me and posted me on Facebook. Whatever. It happens to everybody. And self-admittingly, she said she records every traffic stop that she can. However, mine was the last time she did it. This is court testimony. I could say this. Um, so that's where that lies. I don't remember anybody else coming out. As I start moving the driver back to my patrol vehicle, he tenses his body real rigid. We're moving forward. And what happens when somebody tenses their body and you want them to go somewhere? You have
They're
to
gonna go
exert.
that, yeah, they're gonna push him, either they're gonna fall forward or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So he ended up falling onto the hood of my vehicle by the so he tenses real fast and you could see it on video. He tenses his body real fast and his legs lock and then he unlocks. And when he unlocks, my momentum of my body and my weight push him forward. Ends up on the car and I then lower him to the ground in a very graceful manner. Which you could see on video is like me lowering a toddler to the ground, right? And so I place my knee on his buttocks area. And the reason I do that is I place my right knee down and my left leg is up, right? I am a right-handed shooter. My primary weapon system at that point in time is my duty pistol. If I put my right leg up and I leave him unsecured and he just killed somebody, there's a very likely chance that he might do something that I don't want him to do, right? Run into traffic, try to kick me, roll into me and knock me backwards. All of these things are highly plausible and have happened to officers. So I put my right knee on his buttocks and I still have to maintain the ability to grab my primary weapon system. And as I lower him to the ground and I put my knee on his buttocks, I say 464, one in custody, keep the other units coming, or something to that effect. I don't remember exactly what I say, but I say, one in custody, keep them coming. And as I look up, the passenger is outside of the vehicle yet again, and he's looking at me, going through his pockets like he's looking for something. I think it's a gun. I punch back out again. Loud voiceful commands, or excuse me, loud, easy commands for him to understand. Turn around, put your hands up, walk back towards the sound of my voice, XYZ. And I'm able to successfully put him into custody and put him into the back of the car. The reason that I put the passenger in the back of the car and not the driver, I did not put the driver inside the car because I did not have any camera systems inside that car at that time. I had written a grant for body cameras. I hadn't received them yet. I also in that grant, I believe I had motor vehicle cameras, like dash cam. but we hadn't received them. And so there's a legal terminology called excited utterances. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's recorded on video of him saying it. And they actually played it in court, which was dumbfounding for the defense, or dumbfounding for the prosecutor to play. Because as he's rolling on the ground, he's screaming, "Just fucking kill me, bro. Just fucking kill me." And so I'm like, hey, he's talking. I need somebody here with a camera. Um, couple an undetermined amount of time. I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't long. Um, Another Van Buren County Sheriff's deputy rolls up, and I tell him he needs to go in your car. You got cameras, and he's like, okay. So we pick him up off the ground, and as we're walking him to my buddy's patrol car from the sheriff's department, another car comes screaming into the scene, and it beaches up onto the sidewalk, up onto the grass, leaving the roadway. And I believe it terminates by hitting a pole. The driver gets out of the vehicle, and his first words were, "He killed my son." So now I have the father of the victim, I have the murderer, and it's me and the other officer. So I turn, I give the driver to the other sheriff's deputy, and I walk up and I give this guy the biggest bear hug I can, and I say, I know, like I'm sorry, but you can't be here. You have to leave. And he's screaming, he's crying, "He killed my son. He killed my son." I know exactly what this guy wants to do, but I can't let him.
Right.
So I said, "Hey, you got to go. You can't be here. Go be with your wife." And I push him back in the car and I slam the door. And he's still screaming at me. Hasn't started the car yet. And finally, I'm just like, "You got to fucking leave, man." And he's like, "I'm not leaving. He killed my son." I go, "Get the fuck off my traffic scene." And I start yelling at him. I go, "Get the fuck out of here. Go fucking home." Whatever I may have said, I don't exactly remember, but that's another clip. That's another clip that was recorded and put all over Facebook, is me
Right. I'm
screaming at
sure it
this
was
guy.
like, I was sure it was taken out of context as
Oh,
you just
completely.
being this. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this is just some big angry white cop who is just screaming at people on traffic stops, slamming people off hoods. There's zero contextual evidence to what actually happened that night. And so not only did I arrest a murderer fleeing the scene of a murder with his passenger and partner of that murder, I then protected him from the dad of the kid that he killed. That kid was only 17 years old. His name was Jesus De La Rosa. And and you know, I was I was really blown away. So that incident happened in August of 2020. The very next day, I get informed by one of the sheriff's deputies. He's like, "Hey, man, did you see this?" I go, "See what?" And he shows me the video, and I'm like, "Great," because this is like 2 weeks after George Floyd.
Right.
Oh, great. So I call my chief, and at the time, since then, the chief has been removed, and I'll get into that in a second. But so I call my chief and I go, "Hey, is this a problem?" And she goes, "Matt, they tagged me on Facebook in it, and if I had a problem with it, you wouldn't be working right now." Cool. All right, there it is. I'm good, covered. That chief has then since been charged with 17 felonies, I believe 17 total, for essentially stealing narcotics out of evidence. Um, where those narcotics went, I don't know. However, there's a new chief at that police department, super great guy, and he's been a cop for like 35 years. Great guy, awesome to work for, easy to talk to, and I have nothing but respect for that guy. So, um, and now I was informed as of last week they have body cameras. So,
So this is like 3 years, almost to the day or close to August, 3 years
yeah,
later, that since you put in petitions or grants to want to get the body cams for the police officers for the vehicles, So things like
Yep.
this don't happen and wouldn't have happened initially. And now 3 years later, they're finally getting it.
No, it would have happened much, much faster under a different command. It
Right.
would have, and it just took a new command to come in there and push the paperwork forward. I don't know how long that grant sat for, but it was supposed to be like executed within 90 days. I wrote a $25,000 grant with a 20% match, so $5,000 out of pocket, um, for essentially body cameras and motor vehicle cameras, and I believe new radios and new tasers. So that department has 4 full-time officers that work the road, 2 part-time, and then a lieutenant and a chief. So what I wrote the grant for was, I wrote for, I believe, 4 body cameras, 2 day shift, 2 night shift. And then that way we're not just constantly wondering if the body camera is going to die, which happens if you're recording a lot. I mean, the body cameras are meant for a 12-hour shift, but if you're working a 16, now you're going to swap body cameras, and then you have to download from both body cameras. And if day shift comes working in the next day and there's a body camera at 50%, then they're doing the exact same thing and you're never catching up to it. So I wrote for enough body cameras to have essentially at least 2 in reserve. Um, and then a taser, because we were swapping tasers. I think there was only 1 taser at that department that worked, or maybe 2. Um, and so we were swapping tasers, and if somebody had left it on their gun belt and went home, and they were flying out late for a kid's football practice or something like that, like they might have left it on their gun belt, and now I have to figure out how to get it out of the locker. So lots of stuff went on with that. But from what I understand, as of last week, they received some of those materials, which is a good thing. I believe in body cameras. I used to work at a department where I was answering 12, 15, 18 calls for service in an 8-hour period. And I would literally just do the call to the best of my ability, having my body camera recorded the entire time. And then I would stop about an hour before my shift, and I would go and review all my body cameras and write all my reports. I think body cameras are instrumental for police departments. And here's the thing about body cameras is, we like, the public pushed for body cameras so hard. And then we were like finally folding. We're like, okay, like we're gonna get body cameras. And then they realized the amount of disobedience that people put up with police officers, working in a high profile area where there's a lot of crime and fairly low population. Like, I've worked at one. I've had several instances where people will fight. There's been several instances where I was getting in 2, 3 foot pursuits a night, 2, 3 disorderly conducts a night where I have to physically restrain people. I mean, here's a factor for you. I walked into a domestic dispute. The lady calls me, and she says, my boyfriend punched me in the face. All right, I'm on my way. I get there and I go to arrest the boyfriend for assault and battery and domestic violence, and she jumps on my back and starts clawing at my face and neck. She doesn't want me to actually arrest the guy and put him away for the night. She just wants him to go away for the night and not come back. Well, what the fuck? That's happened several occasions. I remember one time I get called out for 4 black males in a car with a gun. So, okay. So I locate the vehicle and I drive by and I wave at him. I'm like, yeah, I found him. Go ahead and send me another couple units. And so they tell me, they're like, hey, 30 seconds out, minute out. And then, they're like, all right, turn in the corner now, bail, bail, bail. So we all get out. And as we get out to rush the vehicle, all of them jump out. And I happen to beat on to the one with the gun. And as I'm punched out already, right? Deadly force situation. Like, he's got a gun. I'm not gonna hopefully pray that my taser makes that distance. I'm behind him and he's running towards a house. So he's running, so street, car on the street. I'm behind the car approaching on foot. They all bail. I punch out. And as soon as he sees me, he grabs the gun and turns like this, and he's blading his body towards me, and he throws it. We end up proning everybody out. Come to find out, it's just a bunch of fucking kids. Like, I think the youngest was like 14. I think the oldest was like 17. And it was a BB gun, and the orange chip was broke off.
Hmm.
And I was like, you have no idea how close it was. Like, I was slow, steady squeeze. And I'm like, that's another close call for you. Ended up, you know, turning them over to their parents and everything like that. Um, but I mean, I
Yeah, but
think
being
body
put in
cameras are
those
interesting.
right, and in the situation too of if you were to have engaged that kid, right, as he like turns to go throw this fucking what you later found out was like an airsoft gun or a BB gun or whatever, if you would have
Yeah.
smoked that kid, right, and it's like, oh, you just shot a random kid in the back, but you walking through that description of him either like pulling it from his waistband or his pocket and turning around, like that could have been the deciding factor that, like with a body cam seeing that if you would have shot him, seeing him, what it looked like was could have been presenting the gun to fire at you, and I feel like
Well, and
there's
that's
situations
yeah, and that's the thing. That's the problem with body cameras is I reviewed the video after that. Where do you wear your body camera? Center on your
in the
chest.
center chest. So when you draw your firearm or whatever and you come out, yep, you're right, and blocking that. Yeah,
That's a huge problem. That's a huge
yeah,
problem. I think we need to find a better solution that encompasses the entire situation. I mean, we're doing the best that we can now, but we can perfect this to be better. Like, I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm hoping because there's a lot of force on force situations, especially with police officers, where they're wearing a body camera right there, and then the whole scene gets covered, and then it gets called into question, like, well, what was he doing?
yeah, right,
What the
right.
fuck do you think? So so yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
taking it back now to after this whole incident's played out, right? This traffic stop that ends up being you detaining and arresting a murder suspect who ultimately gets charged with the two counts of homicide, right? Um,
hmm
so you've talked to your chief, you basically said everything's good, find out that the leadership's not where it should have been, and maybe you've been falsely led on to thinking that everything was going to be okay. So then what's the follow-on steps? Like this is like the day after Facebook videos are rotating around. You talk to the chief of your department saying,
yeah.
and she confirms that you're going to be okay. What starts happening then?
So I get informed that there was going to be an investigation very shortly after, and I was like, investigation for what? And they were like, they're saying what you did was excessive. And I said, okay, um, what part? And they're like, well, apparently you shouldn't have taken a knee on him. And I go, well, that's what I was trained to do in police academy. Like, if I have a suspect that's rolling around on the ground and could very well possibly roll into traffic, like I can use my means and abilities to secure that passenger or that person's, right? Like, what if he got up and jumped into an oncoming car and he's handcuffed behind the back and he takes a header? What happens to a deer when they take a header at 35 miles an hour? Same
Yeah,
thing. So I get informed that there's going to be a investigation uh, in the month of December. My ex-wife informs me that she wants a divorce. And I'm originally from Nevada and I'm living in Michigan. So I said, all right. So I scheduled some time off with the department and I started heading west. I had three totes and my two dogs. And I drove my truck and my two dogs and my totes out to Nevada. And I dropped my totes off with my mom. And I made it from Michigan to Reno, Nevada, back to Michigan in 6 days. Day 7 was my day back on duty. And I walk into the police department. I'm wearing my gear and I have my plates, my vest in my hand, and a person on that department goes, Matt, what are you doing here? You know, what do you mean? And he looks at me and he goes, she didn't tell you? I go, tell me what? And he goes, she fired you. So I drove all of my stuff out to Reno, Nevada, drove 3,000 miles back to find a post-it note on my locker. It says you're fired. During that drive to Reno, I was about Iowa, and I get a call from an unknown number, and I answer the call. And the guy goes, "Yeah, my name's Detective Sergeant Matt Berry with the Michigan State Police, and I want to talk to you about your incident." I go, "What do you want to talk about?" And he goes, "Well, I'd like to, interview you, and I could do that right now." I said, "Fuck you, talk to my lawyer," and I hung up. I would not cooperate with them whatsoever because I didn't do anything wrong. And this guy is going to sit here and try to burn me for arresting a murderer. Now, self-admittingly, this guy testified to this. In his 24 years on the road as a police officer, he's been a cop for 27 years now. He's been in 12 use of force incidents. So that means he's averaging one per 2 years. I've never seen that number anywhere else except for him. Because what's the likeliness that if you pull 100 traffic stops, how many of those do you think you're going to end up getting into an argument with? If you pull 100 traffic stops, how many do you think are going to be drunk? If you're doing it at night, say he worked day shift. Say he worked day shift and he pulled 100 traffic stops in a month. How many of those do you think he's going to run into something that's going to be volatile?
I mean, I would think that probably more often than not, like a larger percentage, like
I
at
would
least a
say
quarter, 25%, 30%.
I would say 30% is a good number. That's what I was going to say. I would say 30% of the traffic. So if I had to total all of my traffic stops, I don't know, a couple thousand. If I had to say if I had to say a number out of all of my traffic stops, I would say probably 15 to 30%. 15 being the low end, 30% being the high end. So that still puts me at more than 12, and I was only a cop for 4 years, right? So that means one thing to me, that he's hiding.
Yeah, and he's not doing his job. He's not out there doing his job.
And so I'm not saying that you have to get into a fight to be a police officer. I'm not saying that. I'm actually mitigating as much force as I could use, right? But what I'm saying is that it's highly improbable to me that somebody could say that they've been in 12 incidents in 24 years on the road. That's so illogical to me that it dumbfounds me. That I think is actually fraud. If I'm paying you for 24 years to do a job and you only do a quarter of that job, how many thousands of dollars have I wasted on you to not do your job?
Right.
Right. I remember one specific event, and this is kind of to surmise how some operations happen. There was a report of four men in a car in a driveway, and the car is not from that area. And this little old lady in a very, very, very not diverse area close to Hartford says there's four men in my driveway and the car's running. Please send a police officer. And the officer that responded says, I will just call them instead of leaving the station. If you call and you say there's four people in a car sitting in my driveway, send a police officer here, do you want a phone call back or do you want a cop to show up?
Yeah.
So I get a call from dispatch on my cell phone because they didn't want to put it over the radio. And they're like, hey, start heading that way. I said, you have to say very specifically that you want me to respond to this because I'm leaving my area. And she goes, I'm telling you to start driving that way. Boom, lights and sirens, go on. It takes me about 6 minutes to make that distance because it's pretty far out. And as I'm pulling up, there's several gunshots. Boom, boom, boom. So I hear the gunshots, even with my sirens on, and I see a car leave a gas station at a very high rate of speed, just like you would see in the movies. The car's turning sideways, hauling ass, the suspension lowers, and it takes off. So I go 464, in pursuit, shots fired. And I end up losing that vehicle driving through the city. And I returned to the scene, and the officer that said he was going to just give him a phone call is at the scene, and he's taking photos. And I go, "Where were you?" He goes, "I was at the station." I go, "Why didn't you respond to the call?" And he goes, I didn't think it was going to be that important." And I go, "Well, I just got into a pursuit with somebody who fired shots. I don't know where those shots went, but I could have been left alone." And he goes, "Yeah, but you're okay." And like that's the thing with me is like they say it's a brotherhood and they say it's X, Y, and Z, but they'll throw you to the wolves just because it's convenient for them or they won't respond. I have never had an officer worry about, doesn't matter where I'm at. I've never had an officer worry about their personal safety if I am working that night. For instance, there was a very petite tribal officer who pulled a traffic stop on a car with drugs in it, and there was two males. And she says, "I'm over here. Send somebody." I was there in like 30 seconds, and we started going to work. Found a bunch of drugs, and she was like, "Thank you. Like, I don't know what I would have done if nobody was here." And I go, "That's what I'm here for. Like, I'm going to make sure you're safe." I come from the land where people run into machine gun fire. I come from the land where people, if I'm hurt and there's a mine in between us, they're coming to get me. Like I've never had somebody question like if they're going to be okay when I'm on duty, and
Right.
that's the distinction that I set myself apart from. And I hope that more people will start following that because they'll throw you to the wolves for nothing. For nothing.
Nothing.
I don't care if I didn't even like you as a person. Like if I don't care if I didn't like you as a person. If you had a Marine that you had a personal problem with and they're in a gunfight, are you saying, fuck that guy? No, not a fucking chance. I'm coming. Send me. I'm going.
Right. Well, I mean, and
So
that just
yeah.
shows, from correlating that to the time in service and being that type of person, like where that's the mindset that you operate off of, regardless of whether you're in Afghanistan or you're in some town in Michigan. You've been, I don't want to say programmed, but that's your mentality at handling situations like that. And I think we're lacking in a lot of different areas, not just law enforcement, not just the military, but for the people that will stand up for the right thing or get involved when they know that something's wrong. And it's not something that's implemented very much on the youth. Yeah, that's where it really all starts. It's crazy to see that that's really not something that's instilled in children today. um where I guess once you're told that you're like fired, um you get a call. Like, how does that progress into the next step then? Because you do get the opportunity to talk to the chief and ask why the decision's made, or is it you kind of just say fuck it, like you guys are firing me, like I'm walking out of here?
I just said fuck it, I'm bouncing. I had already looked into other lines of work, primarily contracting, and I'd gotten picked up by a by an agency, and that agency said, "Hey, you're going to school in a couple months. Be ready." I said, "All right, cool." So I just started training and traveling, and I was getting ready to head into a position that would put me back in harm's way, and so I was just tying up loose ends, visiting some places that I wanted to be, and go from there. And I knew that there was investigation, but I was fairly confident that they were just going to say, "Yeah, fuck this guy. Like he murdered somebody. Like this, we're not going to charge him."
Right.
So I
Hold
notified.
on, before we jump into that, let's take a quick tactical pause there, and
Mhm.
we'll jump right back into it. Okay. All right, we just took a little break. Matt, you were talking about how you were picking up this contracting gig. You knew that you were heading into training, and you were kind of just doing some things on your own to get prepared for that next step. You knew there was more than likely going to be an investigation, and you're like, you know what? They're going to figure out that this guy is a murderer, and it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, so I figured as much. Like it's not going to go anywhere, and so I started preparing for training. I I had a back injury and from the Marine Corps, and I was struggling with that a little bit, but I knew I was going to have to go to an NDoc, and so I was like, push through. Like you got to do it. Like this job's paying way too much money for you to be a bitch right now. And so I started training, and I ended up getting accepted and making it into the pipeline. And so I arrived at the training facility, and we started day one right there. You know, I met a lot of like-minded individuals, not a lot of the same experience, but a lot of like-minded individuals. And I I I remember talking to one guy. I didn't know anybody. And there was this older gentleman there, and he goes, "Man, I'm real worried about this run." I go, "Hey, man, it's easy. You stick with me. I know I can make it. You stay within 10 seconds of me, you're gonna make it. I promise you that." And funny enough, my school my cadre leader was sitting right there, and he was introducing himself, and he heard me say that, and he goes, "Hey, come here real quick." I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Hey, we haven't met yet, but I'm making you class leader." And I go, "I don't want to be class leader." I was like, "Dude, I've held enough leadership builds in my life. I don't want to be class leader." And I was like, "I just want to be here. I just want to gray man it, but I don't want it." And he goes, "Too fucking bad." I go, all right. Why are you making me class leader?" He goes, "Because of what you just said." And I said, "What, to stay with me?" He goes, "Yeah, that's leadership." And he goes, "Here's the thing. You don't have to be the biggest, the strongest, the fastest." He's like, "You're evidently the biggest by far." He goes, "You're probably the strongest. Um, but you don't have to be the fastest. You just have to care for others to make it through at the same time." And I go, "All right." And he goes, "Tomorrow, class leader, come meet me at 5 a.m." And I was like, all right, great." And so a couple weeks go by, we're still in the pipeline. I think 2 weeks had gone by, and I remember running into a gentleman in the laundry room, and he's wearing a shirt. It's a company shirt, and I remember talking to him. I was like, "Hey, do you know much about this pipeline? They keep us pretty in the dark." And he goes, "Oh man, I'm just the janitor. I don't know nothing." I go, "Well, you're not just a janitor. I mean, you're a vital part of this institution." I go, "My grandfather was a building manager for lots of years, and that building wouldn't run without him. Like, he's the one that makes sure the lights stay on. He's the one that makes sure the chow hall food stays warm. He's the one that makes sure that we have warm showers. He's the one that makes sure the windows don't get knocked out in a windstorm, and if they do, like, he's going to fix them." I was like, "So our comfort is based upon your willingness to do your job." He goes, "Well, thanks for saying that, man." uh, the next day, 4 a.m., I wake up to an email, and it says, "No subject." And the body of the message was, "Did you see what they wrote about you on the news?" Google. I Googled my name, and like 17 pages popped up with excessive force, white cop, Michigan Attorney General, just all over the fucking place. And the job that I had required clearances. And I look and it says charged. All right. So I go and wake up that class cadre that made me class leader, and I go, "Hey, we got a fucking problem." It's like 4:30 in the morning. It's like, "What's the problem?" And I showed him, and he goes, "That's a fucking problem." And I go, "All right, what do we do?" And he goes, "We nothing. You have to go deal with this, but I'm going to talk to the company and make sure you come back." I go, "All right, cool." And because I'd done fairly well for myself in that course, and he wanted me to do well overseas. And so I go and I talk to the company, and at 5 a.m. they have a flight bought for me to go back. And so right before I leave, I'm packing up all my stuff. They bought me a late afternoon flight, so I can say my goodbyes and everything. And so I get pulled into an office. It's the president of the company, and I go, did I fuck something up?" And they said, "No, stand by right here." Okay, and this is like real, like real, like you're getting ready to meet the battalion commander and the fleet. Like, you want to make sure you look sharp. And so I'm sitting there, or I'm standing there, and I'm like wondering what the fuck's going on. And the janitor walks in. Hey, how you doing, sir? And he goes, hey, you still don't know who I am yet. I go, nope. He goes, I'm the president. And I just wanted to say that I really admire your character, and I think highly of you. And I go, well, you're not the fucking janitor, that's for sure.
Yeah.
and he goes, hey, we're gonna try to help you out here. So you go deal with your charges, and while you're waiting for everything, we're gonna hire you back here. We're gonna make you a master technician of all these weapon systems, and cut the grass, whatever you need, because I know you're gonna need some money. Previously to him being the president of the training company, he was a police officer, so he knew the role. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I'll take whatever. I'll cut your fucking grass. I don't care. Whatever keeps me close to the pipeline and I could stay into what's going on. I could stay up on training, and I'll be a Glock master, a Colt master. I'll be a Remington master. I'll be a Daniels defense master technician. Like I'm good with all that. That's just more stuff to add to the resume. That never happened. So I called a couple times, and no answer. I called his personal cell phone a couple times, no answer. And so I moved out west to Montana, and I started my own construction company out there. I had bag full of clothes in my truck, and I was living in a storage unit of one of my buddies that he owned the storage unit. So
So
I was
while
living
you're
there.
doing this, like that transition from going to this pipeline out to Montana, like this is now you know that you've been charged. Had you had to go back and like appear for any court dates at this point, or are you just
Yeah, so I found myself some legal representation, and he actually didn't even charge me. He said that he's like, yeah, I'll take your case. It's going to cost you this much money. I said, okay. And I cut him a check for $10,000 right on the spot. And he actually never cashed it. He gave me the check back. And but so I left the training facility on day one. On day two, I got representation, and we were able to zoom into the county courts. And he was able to get me a Zoom meeting with the judge right there. It just happened to be arraignment day. And he said, well, you're here. I don't have any of the paperwork in front of me, but and he looked over at his clerk, and the clerk chart pulled the charging segments because I was charged in Van Buren County. And he says, you've been charged with two misdemeanors and a felony. And I said, yes, sir. And he says, how do you plead? And I said, not, or he asked me, he's like, or no, he said, well, you're here and it looks like you're going to fight it. And I said, yes, sir, all the way. And he said, okay, personal recognizance bond, no money, no restrictions. So I was free to come and go as I wanted, didn't have to pay any money because their charges went in on the day that they went on the news, and I was there 24 hours later. Uh, so he's like, well, they're not here to say anything otherwise, so you're on your own. And I said, okay. And I shortly after that moved to Montana.
no, you had a friend that lived out in Montana, right? Like you had somebody that you knew out there, so that's kind of the reason you
Yeah.
went that way.
No, I was looking at moving out that way in around 2015.
Okay.
I raised horses as a very young child. My mom would send me off to one of her coworkers' houses before I ended up homeless, and I would go work the lands, and I would work the horses, and I'd dig fence posts, and I found a lot of solace and a lot of pride in doing that. And it, for anybody who's worked with horses, it's one of the most spiritual things that you could do, like on earth, outside of prayer. And I loved every minute of it. Wasn't very good at it, didn't know shit about fuck about it, but I loved it. And so I my goal is always to be back in Montana, especially North Montana, like north. northwest Montana, right outside of like Tetons and Glacier National Park, and that's still the goal. It's going to take me a little while to get there, but I'm going to end up dying in Montana.
Yeah, I have never been out that way, but have heard nothing but good things about it and the landscape. Um, it sounds like a good place to be. Once you get to Montana, how is this, with you trying to move on to that next part of your life? You're kind of living in and out of a storage unit. You don't have a real stable, I guess, platform to, lean back on. Trying to start your own business out there, doing construction. What and all while that's like dwelling over your head that you've got to deal with this, you know, uh, court case now, the charges that have been brought upon you. So what's going through your head, and like what are things that you're doing to keep that shit off your mind?
Honestly, I just try to fill my body with work as much as possible. Like, here's the thing: is like it fucking happens all the time, and I think I'm just a lot more accustomed to it than other people. Like, shit goes south in a gunfight all the fucking time, right? So I have recently begun to compare this to like a long-term engagement with like enemy forces. And I look back at my military experience in my career, and what's the worst call that you can get called in a gunfight? Like, hey, stand by for zap number, right? Does that mean that I break down and cry in that gunfight? Does that mean that I have any other sole focus other than mission accomplishment? Does that mean that I stop doing what I'm doing? Does that mean that I take my eyes off the corner that I'm holding or my sector of fire? And it doesn't. There's a mission. Get the fucking mission done. My mission at that point in time was to raise enough funds to pay for a lawyer because I'm not being covered by the agency. And furthermore, when I was notified that I was being sued by the murderer, the agency insurance person that's paying for the lawyers, partially, called me and he said, hey, if you're found guilty, we're not covering you. So that's double the money. So I was like, okay, great phone call to receive, but sure, whatever. Now I know.
So at
And
this
so
point,
I,
you knew that the department was not covering you at all. So you're trying to do something
yeah,
to basically raise money for your own defense.
right. And I had set up a GoFundMe page, but it got shut down in about 9 hours. You can't have legal defense funds for police officers on GoFundMe.
Hmm.
They will root it out and shut it down. So I started a Give Send Go page for my personal legal defense. But in the 3 years that I've had it, I've only raised about $15,000, so roughly like $3 a day, not much. And up until my spouse started going on the news quite frequently, particularly the Dan Ball show, uh, I had only raised like $7,000. So I thought there was going to be more traction to it. Like, um, you and I had talked about like why I went on like Instagram Live the other day, and it was primarily for a conversation that I had, but I was really blown away at how little people actually knew about the case. Like, unless it's force fed to you, and even when it is force fed to you, you only get one view of the perspective. It's whatever the media wants to narrate to you. And so like I I was really blown away at like how little people knew, especially people that had close personal ties to the case. Um, and very well could have known what was going on. So yeah, I didn't raise much legal funding, and then I ended up getting bound by the court with a gag order, and then I didn't have a spokesman for about a year until my spouse ended up picking up that role for me and just took off with it. She gained a lot of traction really quickly, and thankfully the Dagases of the Matt Dagas case, Matt and Christina Dagas, saw it, and they reintroduced the case to the Pipe Hitter Foundation. I would like to say though, there's one organization that if you're a police officer, you need to reach out to, and it's called the National Center for Police Defense Funding, and the guy that I speak to quite frequently, his name's Bert Eiler. They never said no to me. I'd been shut down by, I don't know, 15 to 30 legal defense funds for police officers across the United States, New York, Delaware, Washington, D.C., California, Seattle, Washington, all the corners of the United States, and they all said no, except for the National Center for Police Defense Funding. And the key fundamental reason for that is they're police officers. Like they're not, some dude in an office somewhere that doesn't know shit about fuck about what it is to be a life of a road officer. And so I'm actually going to be doing a meet and greet for them in October, and I can't wait to get down there and sing their praises, because without them,
You'd
I
be in a
probably
different
wouldn't be a
spot.
fruit.
Yeah.
I'd be in handcuffs. I'd be wearing a jumpsuit. So um, yeah, I can't say enough about the National Center for Police Defense Funding. And so yeah, they picked me up and have been with me ever since.
Nice. Now, this journey has kind of been, filled with a few ups and downs, and then, just recently, you've, been proven not guilty. Leading up to that point, you've got to kind of travel back and forth, going from Montana, going to Michigan for court dates, or for trial dates, getting prepared for that, the money that you had to invest in there, the inability for you to um, find employment, gainful employment in the sense of whether it be another police department, they don't want to touch you because of the situation that you're in, trying to find work with, getting back into that contracting side of things or working for whatever agencies that are out there. Like you've got this, charges put on you again, you don't have the ability to obtain a clearance. So that screws you out of that. So it really puts you in a position of, um, grasping at strings. What were your biggest supporting factors? Like your spouse, your family, people that you used to work with, fellow Marines. What were you relying on during this point in time?
So I talked to a few people, um, mainly my dad and my parents, and but it it was a lot of like self revelation and like self dependency, like I knew, I've served in over three battalions, so even if I served in one company of those three battalions, that means I know a battalion worth of people. And a few people reached out, a lot of junior Marines, a few senior Marines, but for the most of myself, it was just like a group of like five people, five core people. And even then, like I wasn't talking to them daily. And it was just mission, 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 mission. If you are able to mentally just shut the rest of it fucking off, um, you can accomplish a lot, right? Like I spoke to you about the hours that I'm working right now. I wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. and I don't get home until 10, 11 o'clock at night sometimes. Like that's a reality of the work that I'm doing right now. And it's starting over at ground zero again.
Right.
It's you have to have, my friend who's a ranger puts it a good way. He says you can't be a bitch your whole life, right? Like, so I nobody's coming to save you. No one. Like, this isn't the Marine Corps. You're not in a tick. You're not going to have 30 dudes with guns showing up to say, like, hey, we're coming to get you. Like, this isn't, the fire department where, they call it a second alarm and you have a whole nother fire department coming to get you. This isn't the police department where you're on a traffic stop and you hit your emergency button and say, I need help. And there's not 30 cops from every jurisdiction around you coming to help you. Like, you have to strap your fucking boots on, cinch them tight, and prepare for the walk. And you have to understand that you're going to be alone. And the premise of why I went on Instagram the other day, and I had a tough day understanding everything, and I'm going to explain it in the totality real quick. Um, you get back to base, right? Your RTB. You just lost a boy. you haven't had time to comprehend on what's just happened, and then it just smashes you, and you go from 100 miles an hour to dead stop. And I've been in this 3 year long engagement where I've been fighting tooth and nail. And then I realized during that conversation where, some highly critical and important people who knew about the case didn't know as much as I thought they would, like, especially in the position that person's in. I don't hold it against him. But what I did say and what I went on Instagram and I talked about was, you have to talk to your boys more than you do, right? We have the public battles, right? I'm in the news. And then we have the private battles, everything that I'm dealing with outside of that, right? Everybody's got them. And I am especially calling myself out on this because I've gone years without talking to some people, and that's my fault. And that's a bad leadership characteristic. Know your troops and keep them informed, right? You can't win without knowledge. So I self-admittingly I'm terrible at this, but I'm trying to do my best to get better at it. Is reaching out to the homies and even if you don't know if they're in a shitty situation or not, it takes less time to make a 2 minute phone call and ask how somebody's doing than it is to prepare a 15-minute speech at their wake.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I mean, that's
And so yeah.
that's a key. That's a huge thing. I was just talking with another Marine about that last night, and you know, I think the problem that a lot of guys have in situations of turmoil, or even just getting out of the military, or a fire department, or a police department, they think that they can do it on their own, with whatever stress and trauma that they experienced along the way. Like maybe maybe therapy or getting involved with a program or something isn't on their radar, but you shouldn't like let go of those relationships that you built or try to put that shit out of your mind by not communicating to people with the people that you used to serve with. A lot of people will go out and try to do it on their own, and they get into these situations where it's very stressful. It's hard to deal with things, and they feel like they can't reach out to somebody. But that's the biggest thing that you can do. One of the most impactful and important things you can do, because if you can sit and talk to your friends about some of the stressors and the struggles that you're dealing with, maybe they can help find an alternate way for you to attack that problem. Um, Maybe a story of like how therapies worked for them, or talking to somebody about certain things has worked for them, or getting involved with this, or transitioning into something that you're more passionate about. And those things can come from talking to the people that you serve with, reaching out and having those hard conversations. If you can go through combat deployment, or a rough traffic stop, or a gunfight, or an EMS situation, or a building fire with these people, you've created these bond and built trust in that aspect. So what would what would be the problem with talking to them about things that you're experiencing in your everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few different therapies. The one that worked for me the best is equine therapy. Uh, getting out, learning how to saddle a horse, learning how to put a bridle on a horse, learning how to trust the horse, how to let the horse trust you. Um, because you're strapped to a 2,000 pound animal. If that thing goes backwards, you're going to the hospital, if not the
Yeah.
morgue. Um, but there's one particular person that I would like to talk about in this situation. His name's Nick, and he's the head of the Resiliency Project. The Resiliency Project's on Instagram. I would highly recommend even people that haven't gone through traumatic situations, and that's different for everybody. What my level of trauma is not the same as, Joe Bob's down the street. Like that, we're two different playing fields. And I'm not saying that in a good way or a bad way. What I'm saying is everybody deals with trauma differently. The Resiliency Project, though, was started by a police officer, and he got into a highly, highly volatile situation, and he started this up to help first responders and veterans get through their tough times. And he has a ton of resources, whether it's like counseling, whether it's equine therapy, whatever it may be, he should have an answer, and the resiliency project should have an answer on how to get you help. I would highly recommend anybody who's struggling with something, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's mental health problems, whether it's just you need to get the fuck out of there. Um, hit up the resiliency project and submit an application to be talked to, because this is just recently found to me as well. This wasn't like I haven't been talking to him for 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. I've maybe been talking to him for about 3 months now. But just it calm breeds calm. And you could imagine your squad leader in a tick just screaming into the radio, right? Or you get a squad leader who's like, hey, we're in a fucked up situation and I need you to get QR off here now. I'm dealing with the best that I can. But if you don't fucking get here, we're going to end up fucking in a bad situation. I take more emphasis on that as a leader on who knows what the fuck they're doing, and calm breeds calm. So if that can come through clearly, I think it helps the mental acuity and the clarity of the people that are coming to help. So yeah, the resiliency project, couldn't speak higher of them. Ultra good dudes, and they are there to help you.
Good. I'll be sure to follow them and tag them in this too, so that way they can one hear, because I think it's important to hear the firsthand accounts of people that have worked with these organizations. A lot of veterans, I think, are skeptical of participating in certain nonprofits because they don't know what they're getting involved with, or who can vouch for where the money goes or how well things work in the long run. So like being involved with that, and hearing you talk about it in that way, it's definitely one of those things where if it makes an impact with you, it may not work for everybody, but there's somebody out there that it's guaranteed to do something for. So, I appreciate you
Yeah,
sharing that, because that could change somebody else's life. Um,
I'm willing to bet my life on that guy.
okay. Yeah, I mean, dude, you're a straight shooter, man. You're fucking, like the experiences that you had in combat, the experiences that you've had as, a firefighter, as a police officer, as a man, um, you're very straightforward with it, and it's like you're sincere with the way that you say it, like it's not there's no bullshit behind it. It's right and to the point. So I think that's an important thing about the way that you put your story across is there's no beating around the bush. It's all the facts, it's all the details, and it's right there and right straight to the point, what you need to hear. Um,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, man. I mean, it's good to see the like the genuine characteristics come out with people, and then especially when you're talking about something that has impacted you in a positive way. That it's good to hear those stories, because it can motivate somebody else that maybe on the fence about making that decision to go and get some help, or at least look into it. See what possibilities are out there. Um, you've gotten help through multiple organizations along the way. You've advocated for yourself, and not just sitting back expecting change to happen. Like you went out there and you worked at making the change happen for yourself. You've got a good support system and good a couple organizations that you've been able to work with to get you to that point. Um, when you ultimately were found not guilty, I mean that what goes through your mind? Like, how are you feeling? Like, is there a way to describe, hearing that come down when you've got, almost a decade of prison time down the road?
Yeah. So I remember closing arguments happened, and I just sat back and I rotated my chair, and I so the jury's out of the room. It's just the defense, myself and my lawyer, and then it's the prosecutor. And I had a fucking great lawyer. Uh I had the best lawyer in Michigan, hands down. And sitting behind me in the pews is a couple of my Marines, and a couple senior leaders that I really respect. And then it's my adopted mom and dad, and they're very, very religious. And like I said, I've only come close to God uh, a couple times, but I'm working my way as a sinful man to meet the expectations of God. And I remember she looked at me, my adopted mother, and she goes, you know, are you okay? And and I just pointed. I said, I don't understand the plan, but I trust it. And here's the thing is like you don't know what the fuck's gonna happen to you tomorrow. You know, it's not your plan, it's his plan. It's not your will unless you're sinning. That's a willful thing. But it's his plan, my hands. I didn't know how it was gonna go. And I remember talking to her the day prior, and you know, we're sitting there talking about faith, and I said, you know, it's his plan, my hands. Like I don't understand the plan, but I'm gonna trust it. And if his plan is for me to do a little bit of time, I'm okay with it. I can I can get out staring at, you know, 7 years. I'm 32 right now. That puts me at 40, or close to 40. That's still plenty. People live to be a fucking 100 nowadays. You know, that's a whole nother. That's double my lifetime. You know, I'm okay with it, and I trust that, you know, God and His plan for me is great. He wouldn't put me in these situations if He didn't have something planned for me. And whether it be, you know, carrying Marines off the battlefield, whether it be putting people together uh, as a fucking firefighter, or whether it be stopping the stops that I've made. You know, that was a 1 in a billion fucking traffic stop. A mile away from the homicide scene, nobody got hurt, and then the dad showed up, and I protected the murderer. Come on, now we're talking the higher astronomical numbers. Like, pick a fucking star. Which one's that one? You know, and I've done everything that I can to the highest nobility and honor that I could produce, and sometimes I fall on my face with it. Sometimes I really show the fuck up. It just depends on what's presented to me. So I remember she said, you know, are you okay? And I said, you know, I just pointed up and I said, you know, it's his plan. I'm okay with whatever he says. If he says, hey, do a little bit of time, I'm okay with it. You know, and I also I respect the laws of man, but they're not the end all be all. You know, at the end of the day, when I take my final breath, who am I answering to? I'm here for a short time. There's eternity. I would rather much deal with what he's got planned for me and do it with my chin up, chest out, than fall on my face and act like a coward in the face of adversity. So so yeah, I felt pretty good. And I remember they came back not guilty on all three counts. And I remember you could actually see it on the video in court. I look up and I kind of chuckle and I go, you know, you got a great sense of humor, right? And I'm just talking to being God. And I said, you know, you got a great sense of humor. Uh, thank you. Because I needed to be humbled. I did. I needed to be humbled. I needed to be brought back closer to his word and his scripture. And it just took this to do it. You know, I could run through the fields of Afghanistan and not get hit. Um, and I could, you know, do X, Y, and Z. I could run into a building burning. I could run into gunfire as a cop. I could do whatever. I could search. I remember one time I got called out to a suicidal suspect with a AR-15. And I look back. I have two other officers there with me, and they're my senior officers on that department. I'm I'm looking back, and one's a 23-year-old kid who is technically senior to me because he graduated the police academy a month before me. And I look back even further, and there's our defensive tactics instructor, scared out of his fucking mind. And right before we get to hit the door, I go, "How many of you guys have done CQB?" They look at me and they say, "Just in the academy." I say, okay. If I open this door, you have to realize there's no closing this door. So I'll go first. Don't shoot me in the fucking back. and searched the house. He wasn't there. He was walking down the street with it. We were able to safely apprehend that subject and talk him out of dropping the gun and talk him off the fence. But I wouldn't be placed in these situations if he didn't have an expectation for me. And I think the expectation that everybody, and this is why I speak so highly of public service, and I would still be a cop today. I would go back and be a cop again if it was right. Because there's no higher calling. There's really not, other than possibly being a pastor. That would be the only higher calling that I could see is spreading the word of God. But to, you know, a quote that's often quoted too much is, you know, it's he who lays down his life for his brothers. And I think about that and I think about like send me, like I'm here, send me. And that just resonates me to the core. I could
I
be
mean,
homeless, I could be all these fucking things. I could be a 15-year-old sleeping at a bus stop watching a dude fucking smoke heroin next to me. But I know my path is set for honorable and noble intentions. And I have to try my absolute best to live up to his expectations of me. Because if I don't, then I fail.
yeah, and through everything that we've talked about, I mean, you're not a guy that sits well with failure. All those experiences that you've had in your life, even before the Marine Corps and after it, through the situations you've been through, you've been tried and tested many times, and to ultimately come to the realization that you're doing it. You've been put in these situations by God to come out on the other side, like prosper and come through and be successful. Um, it's pretty cool that you've been able to realize that and you're walking on a new path and serving God. I think that's important nowadays. It's really lost in a lot of people. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with being proud of having faith and believing in God. So I'm glad to hear you say that. Um, with the that being so recent, that was what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now that happened on the 14th of April, right? April 14th.
I mean, honestly, I don't remember the date.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
just like, but yeah, that because I
next
was
mission.
trying to, yeah, yeah. I wish I would have been able to get out there. I know you and I have been talking about that, but
Yeah.
just got other shit that I've got to be responsible for. What that next mission? I mean, you started your own business now, right? And what? Give me a little insight on what you're doing with that.
So the business that I work for currently is not mine. Um,
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Okay.
yeah, so it's construction. I've owned my own construction business. I am now essentially a subcontractor for them, but what I do is I'm a project manager for home restorations. So I'm not the one swinging a hammer. I'm not the one laying grout. I'm not the one doing the roof. I am the essentially the platoon commander for different squads, and so I have my roofing squad, I have my siding squad, I have my gutters, I have windows, whatever it may be. So essentially, what we do is we do home restoration to for insurance companies to bring homeowners back to pre-storm conditions. So I work with several other individuals that operate in multiple different states, primarily Dallas, Texas, and Kalamazoo, Michigan. And so what we do is some people call us storm chasers. That's fine. You can call us whatever you want. But what I can tell you is I try to make people whole with what they have lost. So, so say a hailstorm comes in and just demolishes your house, knocks out windows, takes off siding, puts hole in siding, destroys your roof. Now you have a hole in your roof, whatever it may be. What I do is I sit down with that homeowner and I explain, I will help fix your entire house. All you have to do is file an insurance claim. What they're going to tell you is they're going to tell you to pay me your deductible. You're not paying me, you're paying the company. With that deductible, whatever it may be, 500,000, 2,000, 10% of total value market. the total market value of your home, that gets put back into the home itself. And so I work with several different individuals to bring your home back to pre-storm conditions. So your home looked like this before the storm. I'm going to bring it back to this or better. So primarily what I do right now, especially in Michigan, is roofs, gutters, and siding. So I schedule all of this work to be done, and then I also work with those crews to ensure code compliance and also um, like homeowner happiness. So, if I'm not closing that home's contract until like the homeowner says like, yeah, I think this looks great. Thank you for all you've done. So that, $1,000 check, whatever it may be, could very well bring $70,000 worth of labor and material to your house. So, roof, gutter, siding, windows, whatever it may be, I'm going to get your house fixed. The reason I like this job so much is I am actually helping people still. And, catastrophic loss. There was a catastrophic loss up here in Michigan with some homes. Nearly 200,000 homes were affected across the state. And so what I'm doing is I'm sitting down with the homeowners and I'm ensuring them that we're going to help them become whole again. Kind of like the guys that were going down to after Katrina and Irma and all that stuff. And we're making sure that homeowners could safely live in their home and not have to worry about their drywall falling off the ceiling because of water damage.
Right. And
So
it seems like you
I
guys have been very quickly able to, from following your Instagram posts on it, you're getting in and, doing a better job, well, a quicker job and a better job than other companies out there at a better price.
Yeah, so well, the price doesn't change for us. We don't collect any money outside of what the insurance tells us to. So
Gotcha.
essentially for a deductible, they could approve up to, like, I've had jobs ranging from $18,000 to $65,000, $70,000. So what I do the homeowner testimonials because there's a lot of other companies out there. Like everybody's vying for work. Yes. However, what I am able to do with my capabilities and my capacity for time management and mission accomplishment, right? I'm very well suited for this job. I've been doing this job for the last 14 years of my life, starting in 2009, and so to me, it's really easy. Here's the mission. Here's your admin logistics. Here's your attachments and detachments. Make it happen, squad leader. And so I could just make this fly really quickly. And, it really astonishes people how well we do. So since the storm on April 4th, I've been able to successfully accomplish 4 roofs, install 3 sets of gutters, because this takes time too. So the incident date occurs, right? Just like if you'd hit a deer with your car, right? Well, with that, you would file the claim because there's damage, right? Most homeowners don't just say, "Oh, my roof was destroyed." Like they don't know any better. So I show up to your door and I say, "Hey, my name's Matthew. I work for this company, and if you'd like a free inspection, I could show you some deficiencies in your home with the storm damage." 95 people, 95% of the people say no, right? And then the 5% that do say yes, I get up, I do a roof inspection, I do a siding inspection, I do gutter inspection, I do windows inspections, and pretty much anything that's attached to the outside of your house, whether it's fencing, secondary storage units, like a shed. And I go through and I take pictures. I say, this is enough to start a claim for hail damage or storm damage or wind damage or whatever it may be. And then I work with the insurance company. And so they say, yes, we're going to file a claim. So they could file a claim that day. They could say, hey, it's not a good time. I got to take the kids to baseball practice. Let's do this tomorrow or next week. And I say, okay. And then the claim happens. They file the claim. And then it takes X amount of days, 7 to 10 business days for an adjuster to get out there. This storm was rather significant, so a lot of insurance companies sent out like storm catastrophe teams. And so then my job is to meet the adjuster there and make sure they see every single inch of that house that is damaged. It's not their fault. We're all human. Sometimes we miss stuff, especially when you're doing 10, 12 inspections a day. Um, so I show up and I meet the adjuster there if I'm able to, and if not, somebody else from my company will be there to meet the adjuster. And then it takes another 7 to 10 days for them to produce their report, and that's business days. So if they show up on a Friday, you're most likely going to see it the following Wednesday after the following week. And so then after that, they produce their report. They say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to cut you your checks for. So we say, okay. And then we schedule them to start working. So the storm happened on April 4th. My first roof went on like April 17th. So it takes about 2 weeks to start that. But
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems
since
like that. Yeah,
And so, or April 19th. So since the 19th of April, I've installed 4 roofs. My other partners in this, I think we've installed like 25 roofs or close to 30 roofs. And since then, I have another 5 roofs going on next week. I have gutter jobs going on while I have roofing jobs. And then I have all of the houses require siding. So I'm scheduling the siding jobs. And what I've done is kind of like doing a ZAP roster for the Marine Corps. I have all of my jobs lined up, column one, and then column two, I have the addresses and the names, and then I go from there. And so just like you would for like a like a admin list for all your numbers and your serial numbers and your rifles, I do that. And so I say house, siding, gutters, approved, disapproved, where it's at, scheduled dates, stuff like that. It's fairly simple. I know it seems like a lot of information, but if you've set up a mission even once in any combat arm, like you can make this happen.
yeah, for sure.
Eh,
There's definitely ways of like,
Yeah.
and two, it's like you're kind of getting thrown into it, but also you've got, it seems like you've been educated enough with obviously your experience and leadership, but also the leadership that you have now, or whoever's there with the company that you came into, they're able to properly get you run up to speed on being, getting these things done.
Yeah, so the owners of the company I've known actually for several years, and they were actually some groomsmen at my ex-wife's wedding, at my ex-wife's and I's wedding, and so I've known them for several years. And I reached out to them and I said, hey, I got my own building company. There's the storm. What can how can I make some money and help you guys at the same time? And boom, started the next day.
Nice.
So so the
So
storm
you
happened on
found
April
your,
4th.
oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So yeah, the storm happened on April 4th. On April 6th, I was closing houses.
Nice. And with that, it seems like, you know, you're finding a way. I don't want to say like certain you're not like a line of service, but it is like a service industry, going out there and being able to do this. And you're working with people that, like you said, have been affected in a tragic way, and some of their houses ruined, personal belongings damaged or destroyed. So you're finding a way to integrate yourself into, not only this community, but I'm sure you guys will travel around the country and do this as well. Or at least it seems like you
Yeah,
guys would be doing that.
yeah. So I actually find great joy and some personal pride in this. Like I show up to your house and I'm like, hey, your house is wrecked. I can fix this for you, and you don't have to pay anything out of pocket other than your deductible. That sounds like a deal that's too good to be true. But what we do is we work with the insurance company. Your job is to pay your homeowner's insurance every month. Their job is to make sure that your home stays good, right? So I found I find great personal gratitude in doing this. I feel like I'm helping people every single day. And that's why I grind so hard in it, 4 a.m. to 0400 to 2200, 2300, because like I like doing this. It's fun to do. And it's fun to work with the crews. Every time I have a crew out there, like I'm getting them pizza, I'm getting them food, I'm getting them cold water. Sometimes it's 75 degrees out and you're sitting up on a roof for 4 or 5 hours. I'm up on the roof with them. I'm making it happen. So not only am I saving the homeowner 10 to 70 thousand dollars, I'm helping keep people employed by providing them work, and I'm not breaking my back doing it. And this puts
Yeah,
me back into the leadership capacity where like I'm making things happen, and I'm watching people build these miraculous things, these beautiful houses back together and putting them back together. And like I have pride in having a part of that. And so
definitely.
I take it pretty personal when things, you know, aren't happening as fast as possible. Like the insurance company, sometimes they disagree with something, and I say, hey, you got to get somebody out here to take a second look at this, because like, I had one guy that had metal siding on his house from 1982. Like that can no longer be produced. Like it's no longer made. Like you need to, like your job is to make this house pre-storm condition. So let's figure out how we need to make this happen. And I think I'm still waiting on the final decision, but I think his house is going to get approved for all new siding.
Nice.
So he's got a brand new roof, he's got brand new gutters, he's going to get brand new siding, and with that, he's going to get brand new trim for his doors. He's going to get a brand new trim for his garage door, brand new trim for his windows. Like this is big stuff. He's getting a brand new exterior of his house, and all it cost him was $500.
There you go. Well, Matt, it seems like, you found your, I don't know, maybe a career path, but definitely a calling in the things that you feel passionate about. I mean, just listening to you explain the process, and then like you've gathered the knowledge and the information, and you're actually out there, employing that. So it's good to see that with all the shit that's happened to you, like you've had to start from scratch, building yourself back up. You're not just sitting back and, like I not taking a loss, but you could be doing plenty of things right now and putting your feet up and trying to, you know, I don't want to say create further problems, but you know what I'm saying? Like you're not pursuing anything. It's gonna like I deserve something because I was, had to go through this situation. You're just, excuse me, leaving that alone, getting out there, working hard, making shit happen. And I think people need to see that, and like the resilience behind, you know, the experience that you've had throughout, all of your forms of service, and then dealing with this. That's a big blow, and took 3 years of your life, almost 3 years of your life, and having to deal with that. And you put yourself in a position to make nothing but good things happen. So,
Thank you.
with that, is there anything, else that you're looking forward to, or things that you're trying to get done, or a point to, you know, do you have a message to the people out there that have either been in your same position, or you feel like, man, this is it, like you know this cut my legs out from under me, and I can't really move forward from here?
Yeah. So that's kind of a twofold question. I'll answer like people in my position first. Um, if you ever find yourself in a compromising position that is going to take from you something that you're officially unwilling, or like to begin with, you're unwilling to part with, right? Like you're going through a divorce, you're going through losing a job, you're going through losing foster kids, you're going through becoming homeless. There's one quote that I really love, and it's about knocking on a door, and it's about the gospel. It says, "He who opens the door after I knock, um, shall know me." And again, I'm still really new to finding God. God never loses you. You lose God, right? And I know I'm misquoting this, and I'm gonna have to do some scripture reading later for it, but yeah, God always knows where you're at. It's up to you to knock, and you could find solace in God, and you could also become renewed with just His word. I remember I've only been going to church for about 8 weeks now, but every single time I go to church, I feel like it's speaking to me. So if you're going through a personal struggle, if you're going through the personal struggles of just being a fucking human, right? Everybody's got them. I highly recommend. opening up a Bible. Open up a Bible because that has some of the greatest hero stories ever written, David. Fuck, you know? Um, so if you're having a struggle, find God. He knows where you're at. You just have to navigate to him. And he's not going to make himself known to you until you're willing to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. Two, have goals, have a mission. The reason that you feel the way you do right now is because you are not working towards attaining something. I have a goal. My goal is to finish my civil case, which is going to conclude hopefully in July of next year, July of 2024. After that, my next goal is to become a homeowner again, whether if I have to build it with my own fucking hands or if I move into somewhere. But I know where I'm going and I know how much money it's going to take to get there. And every day I grind my dick into the dirt working towards it. And any day that I don't, like I did take a break the other day. I had a mental health shutdown day. I didn't turn my phone off per se, but I just I powered down, right? I'd been working for about 3 weeks and my days were 04 to 2200, right? Why? Because I have a mission. My mission is to get back to where I want to go and raise a family and take my spouse out there. She's from there. I'm from there. We want to go back there. And that's the goal. I have until May of next year when she graduates college. And we're gonna go out there and we're gonna start our family. And every day that I don't do something to attain it, it's a failure on my end because I am not working towards that goal, right? You could take a tack pause, you could take a knee, face outboard, pull security, drink water, but you're not stopping that patrol because somebody got their feelings hurt. Take yourself the fuck back up, lace your bootstraps up. There's fucking shit to do. Go get it done. Um, so there's that. Find God and find a mission. And I think that's if you can do those two, if you can do one of those two things and you work every day towards that goal, rain or shine, hail or sleet, whether you're feeling it or not, it doesn't fucking matter. Do that. And I guarantee you, you'll find solace in that.
That's some great words of advice, dude. I couldn't have said it better. Um, Definitely with finding God, especially as we get older, families, you see the things that are going on around you. Um, Finding peace in the words that are written in the Bible and implementing that into your life makes a huge impact. And then, like setting goals for yourself, however small they may be, could be start to change your diet, can be changing the way you wake up, like the time that you wake up in the morning, going for a walk, moving on to going for a run, all those little things that you can do working to better yourself. I mean, obviously incorporating work into that, setting goals and working towards accomplishing them. If you don't do that for yourself, like I found for a long time, I was just kind of floating through the abyss, expecting things to just happen. Once I started putting goals down and like actively working towards making a difference, that's when you can start to see the change happen. So, like I said, man, couldn't have said it better. I appreciate you coming on and talking with me again and giving an inside, detailed story about the things that have affected you the last couple of years and the situation that you've been in. Because I don't think a lot of people can really fathom the time, the energy, the money, the stress, all of that goes into the situation that you've been placed into. But knowing that you've been exonerated, proven not guilty, it's fantastic. And to see that you're still working your ass off to get yourself somewhere, and you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. So these lessons that you're passing on through the experiences that you've gained, Like it's not just you out here blowing smoke up people's ass saying, oh, well, this is what you should do. Like you're advocating for that by out being out there and putting in the work. And I mean, you've shown that. Not that you need like the notoriety or like the oh, look at what I'm doing on social media, but the post that you have made and you're out there and getting in that work and grinding, and it shows that it has an effect. You keep that positive mindset. You set those goals up, start implementing some changes in your life. You know, follow in the footsteps that would make you a more faithful person. um, you're doing it, dude. You're doing it. And it's making a difference. So I'm glad to see that. I truly am.
Thanks. You may not be able to see the background, and I don't know if the viewers are going to be able to see if you're going to post a video of this, but I'm living in a basement right now out of a backpack. I have essentially 12 days worth of clothes, and I'm living in my brother's basement. And I have my truck and nothing else physically here with me at this location. But I got God's will, and He's allowing me to walk, breathe, see, and talk. And if you can wake up, because I don't care where you're at in the world, I don't care where you're at physically, I don't care where you're at, mentally, you could do it. And, I live in this basement and I work my ass off because I have a goal. And that goal is going to be attained by the end of next year. I fucking promise you that. I promise you that because I have the willpower and the strength to do it. And I am not alone. Everybody's imbued with this by the creator. Like if you can walk and you can talk and you have the fortitude to just stop laying in bed, stop sitting on the couch, stop watching TV, stop eating bullshit food, and you could fucking grind. Even if you grinded for 4 days out of the week, women, kids, children, it doesn't matter. I mean, I take my brother's kids to baseball games. I watched a softball practice the other day and in a softball game, and then I took him to a basketball game after. Like, I can still fucking do this. So can you. Like I'm not just some random person that, you know, anybody can make any excuse they want in the world. Like, oh, I have kids, I have this. Look at fucking you, dude. Look at you. You have time to be a father. You have time to go to church. You have time to go to jujitsu. You work full time and you're doing this on the side. Like, my fucking hat goes off to you. I'm just a dude that doesn't know when to quit. You're a dude that's being a good fucking father and you show up every day. Every day. You have no choice but to show up. So my hat goes off to you. My hat goes off to the fucking mothers and fathers that are maybe single, working two jobs to get that shit done, to make sure that their kids have food and roofs over their heads. And it may not be the greatest fucking situation, but it's what they got now. And the economy is shit, but we're dealing it with the best that we can. So if you think that you're listening to this and you think that you can't do it, you fucking can. There's 24 hours in the day. Make it fucking happen. You can sleep when you're dead.
Yeah, dude. That motivates the shit out of me. I'm about to go get a fucking lift in, take my kids to the pool and do some positive shit. I mean, it goes back to you just saying like, if I can do it, so can you. And I think that's huge
Yeah.
because a lot of people have like this like want to do something more, but they're waiting for like the right time or they're waiting for like somebody else to get involved with it or having a gym partner or having a spouse or have whatever it may be. And sometimes like the best time to do it is now, like get out there and get it because the longer you sit back and wait, the more time you're wasting, the more unproductive you're being. And, um, I think that, you being an advocate for it and standing behind it, that just shows that it can be done. And I appreciate you sharing all that insight because I know it's impactful to me, and if it's impactful to me, it's going to be impactful to somebody else as well. So,
I,
yeah,
I know we're wrapping up, but I got one great quote I heard just I think either yesterday or today, and I saw it on Instagram. And it was if you were walking down the street one day and a magic portal opened and it's you from another universe with everything that you want, all the money, all the material, the body, the knowledge, everything. What excuse would you give that person?
what excuse would I have, like why I'm not there? Like you see like where
Why
they're
are
at.
why yeah, why am I not the best version of myself? If that person's got everything and it's me that I'm looking at. Why am I not that person?
Yeah,
And
I
that
would say
resonated with
late. I
me.
would say, yeah, dude. I mean, that for me, why am I not that person? I think it's complacency and laziness. Like finding an excuse to take that extra step, work the extra hour. Um, I'm guilty of that, and it's
We all are.
seriously,
We all
yeah,
are.
seriously though. But like here, like holding you got to hold yourself accountable and like talking about it and getting it like that, like acknowledging the fact of where you're fucking up and then just making a step forward. Like it's easily stuff that can be changed. Um, and I think I've got my mission. I know that it sounds like you do, and hopefully by hearing like even the little ways of setting that up, like just find this, look for this, work towards this, and it can a little bit at a time you can change your life. So um, Matt, again, thanks for coming back on. I hope that one day we can link up in person and, you know, it'll be good. That's going to be my goal in the future is to start meeting up with people that I'm interviewing, get some in-person stuff done. So in the future, we'll get that taken care of. Maybe someday I'll come out to that sweet slice of heaven that you got in Montana. Um,
One
but
day.
yeah,
You're
one
welcome
day, dude.
anytime.
But yeah, of course, dude. I same goes for you. You ever passing through Chicago, you got my number. Hit me up, and we'll get together. But guys, that was Matt Mistretta on the latest episode of the Pressing Forward podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys.